It's their wish and desire to get these children back with their parents. That is the number one place for these children, is to be in their biological families.
You just heard Amy Travis, Executive Director of CASA of Kern County, talking about the need for CASA volunteers. Amy Travis serves as the Executive Director of CASA of Kern County and began her career with CASA in May of 2012. She's been instrumental in the organization's restructuring and development and launching new fund streams and increasing volunteerism. She serves on the board of Kern County Network for Children Board of Directors, addressing the most critical issues facing children in Kern County. And her co-host, Diana Ramirez, joins us as the Resource Division Manager. In today's show, we discuss what's a CASA volunteer. Later in the show, we talk about the foster care system in Kern County. And stay tuned to hear rapid fire answers from our guest.
Welcome back to the Our 2 Cents podcast, the show where your local professionals sit down with an array of guests to hear their story and impart some wisdom for both business and life-improving skills. This is your place to hear business and community leaders discuss relevant topics that matter to you.
And welcome to the show today. My name is Troy Burton, and before we get today's episode, I'd like to encourage our listeners to go back and listen to our last episode of Shannon Eckroff's first podcast with Our 2 Cents. She's a great addition to the show, and I would encourage everyone to reach out and listen. Amy, I am so happy to have you here today. Thank you for joining us and bringing your dear friend, your guest, Diana Ramirez.
Thank you for having us. We're excited to be here.
We are happy to get into your nonprofit organization and what they do to serve our community. But before we get started, I would say that the majority of the community has heard the word CASA. You know, you can look it up and find out what CASA means, and I know it's a court-appointed special advocacy. But let's talk. What really is a CASA employee or a CASA volunteer?
Well, that's what we're here to do, and I can't wait to kind of shed some light on what it is exactly our organization does for the community. And you're right, I think a lot of people have heard of our organization. We've been here for 26 years. However, there is a lot of myths or misconceptions about exactly what we do. So let's break it down today.
So when you say you've been here 26 years, that's representing Kern County. So you're part of a national firm, and you've been established 26 years. That's kind of shocking me. I didn't really realize that. And I know that we've seen some fundraisers. We're going to talk about some events coming up. What does a CASA volunteer do?
Well, can I start with just talking about a little bit about where CASA started? Just
Yes.
because we talked about that national affiliation, because we are affiliated with the National Association. However, we are very much locally run and operated. We have some standards of excellence that the National Association provides us, and year after year, we're 100% in compliance and leading the way for a majority of CASA programs in the state. But CASA as an organization began in Seattle, Washington with a concerned juvenile court judge. He was hearing case after case after case and, reading these court reports from attorneys and social workers and the professionals involved, but still didn't feel like he was getting the whole picture. And he and some other attorneys band together and decided that a group of unbiased, trained volunteers could come in and provide insight and get to know these children and just paint a picture for them. And that whole concept really just spread like wildfire across the United States. And so in the United States, there's programs in every state. In California, there's 46 programs alone. So that's very much the concept of it, and it's grown from there ever since.
So you say there's 46 organizations in California. Is that county-based or is there
County-based.
borders? Okay, that's county-based.
Per county.
And I know this, but I don't know statistics. There's a huge need. What is your specialty? Are we talking, we're talking foster children. Let's talk about some Kern County demographics. We know obviously they're very large, but give us some ideas. How many kids are in foster care today in Kern County that you know of?
In Kern County, we have about 1,800 children in foster care. And so that number is very staggering. That means that those children, those are substantiated, abuse, neglect, or abandonment on behalf of the caretaker, where the state has to come in, remove them from the family. unfortunately, there's a lot of unsubstantiated claims of child abuse that happen every day. So it's very important that us as a community are very aware of when and what child abuse looks like. But currently, there are 1,800 children in care. So what that means is that they've been removed. The state is now in charge of making sure that they're safe and stable and that they have a permanent plan until they turn 18. Now it's up until 21 because of legislation, which is wonderful. But currently, a lot of legislation also affects these children, depending on, rules and who's the president, who, what type of programs that they're established. But I really didn't come to talk a whole lot about that, but I can just tell you that this state is not a parent, right? They're just in there temporarily, and it's their wish and desire to get these children back with their parents. That is the number one place for these children, is to be in their biological families. But if they cannot be, then how do we get them either in, a adoptive home with a family member, which is where legislative actions are driving us. Let's see about, what family members are available instead of putting them in foster care, because it's been researched and identified that children do not belong in foster care. They do not belong in group homes. They do not belong in congregate care. And so that's a very good thing for these kids. They need to be in loving families. And that's a lot of times what we see as an organization, where when the judges, their hands are tied. They understand that this child has behavioral issues. They understand that this child has been moved around 10, 12 times. There is no one on this child's team, because so many professionals have gone in and out, and so many homes have closed their doors to these children because they're very difficult. It's very, and that is the beauty of a CASA volunteer. That CASA stays with the child from the day they enter care to the day that they exit. And a lot of times we get the most acute cases because we're not able to serve all 1,800. We serve around 400 annually. And so those 400, though, are typically very, very acute need, where the likelihood of them finding an adoptive home is very low. The likelihood of them aging out of care is very high as in a group home. They may have so many behavioral issues that every bridge that they've crossed has been burned because of whatever behavior that they've exhibited. Right. And so the CASA can be by their side every step of the way, and no matter what, and make sure that at least their basic needs are met. But a lot of times it's thriving.
This volunteer is a consistent pillar in their lives.
Exactly.
That walks with them, mentors them, coaches them, assists them, really a friend, and helps them through this process. And as you said, the goal is to get them into their inter-family instead of a foster family. And you say there's a shortage of foster families in our community? There
really is. Let me kind of backtrack on that a little, because a foster family is a really good place for them as well. I mean, I'm not saying, but
it's not as good as possibly
a permanent family, right? Yeah. We don't want them to turn 18 and then have to move out and don't have any ties to their original family. Yes. So I have to give so much credit to foster families because it's such hard work.
Well, as you mentioned, these are troubled kids.
Yes.
They have
behavioral
issues, and you could think, and I don't believe in perfect families, but you may have a very dynamic family and you're bringing possibly something a little toxic into it. It could be very difficult.
Yeah. I've actually sat down with the director of the Child Protective Services. Matter of fact, last week we had lunch, and she was sharing that, a lot of foster families want babies. They want, the young ones. And so, unfortunately, we have a lot of teenagers, a lot of 7, 8-year-olds that might have already started exhibiting violent behaviors, or, running away, or even introductions to drugs. I mean, it's just sad that, as they begin earlier and earlier and earlier these days. So yeah, that's what we find a lot. The one thing we find with CASA, though, as an advocate, even if this child has those behaviors, their advocate, because their advocate knows them so well, like an aunt or uncle or a family friend, they're able to say, yeah, I know on paper it shows that he has 4 medications, that he's moved around 7 times, but I can tell you he loves peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, his favorite blue blanket, he likes to play soccer, and he loves his brother and sister, and that's all he wants, to be with them one day because they've been split up. Right. And that can speak volumes to a foster parent, even a kin, a relative that has been reluctant to get involved, so that is our main goal, is to find permanency for this child. But we do that through such a variety of means, and sometimes it doesn't end permanency. They do age out, but they still have their friend, their CASA, who's guiding them, who understands the resources that are available, coaching them, letting them know. I mean, just this morning I was talking with an advocate and he's like, yeah, caregiver, they don't have a car. They never, had an education themselves. They're overwhelmed. It's grandma. She's raising her 2 grandsons. They're a handful. She's not motivated to get them to school, so they just don't go. And so what he was able to do, because we're court appointed, we have a court order to access information educationally, pharmaceutically, any type of confidential information is available to us. He talks to the counselor, and the school counselor makes an appointment, and this morning at 7:30, they had a meeting to get him enrolled in his classes. Very basic thing that, grandma probably should have been the one doing it, but grandma needed some support and he needed a little more to someone else to kind of push the agenda for him because he was only 16 and doesn't want to go to school either.
Sure, yeah.
So all of the CASA did was picked up the phone. He's not enrolled in class yet. They don't have a car, but he, would you set up a meeting so we can get these classes going? Sure, come in on Wednesday. And they had the appointment this morning and now they're on their way. So just one way of small wins that we make for those kids.
How long is the process once you determine that a child is considered? What you said is most of these children have been taken from their parents for whatever reason. What's the process before a judge grants a CASA volunteer to a child to be a pillar?
There's the stage where the state has to prove that the child is no longer safe with their parent. That takes a couple of hearings. And so once the state and the judge have both set forth that child needs to come in protective custody and remain in protective custody it's usually an 18-month process, is kind of some of the legislation and the statutes that you're supposed to kind of be guided by. Parents have up to 18 months. Then CASA is assigned usually like around month 6 of that process, just because we can't be assigned before disposition, meaning they have to make the fact claim that this child needs to be removed. We don't have anything to do with that lawfully. We're only after disposition. So it's usually in the early stages, but not before that.
And where does this child reside while the court's hearings are going on in the 6-month wait before there's an appointment? Where's that child at?
And that's what the job of the social workers. I mean, they do an excellent job at finding foster homes, finding family where they can stay, or Jameson Center, So it's one of those 3 options. And so we're just, assigned typically, there's different cases. So sometimes they're with mom and dad, actually. Sometimes it's, they have found that mom and dad need services, but it was safe for the child to go back. So they give mom and dad kind of like a little probationary period for 6 months. And a lot of times we do get assigned right at the beginning of that 6 months so that we can help monitor, because those 6 months are crucial for the judge in understanding if mom and dad are really serious and, ready to be off probation. It's amazing that a volunteer does all of that.
Well, I looked at your website, and it's a nice website, and it talked about what you have to commit. I mean, it's not, hey, I'll give you a couple hours a month. No, this is the training. And so let's talk about it, and let's talk about the need of more volunteers and the need in our community.
And that's why I wanted to bring Diana Ramirez. She is currently our resource development manager, but prior to her role, she was a community outreach coordinator, very similar to my path at CASA. We share so many interests in the organization, and she was pivotal in recruiting and training the volunteers. So I'll let her take the mic and talk a little bit about that 45 plus hour initial training that our volunteers get, but they're ongoing too. So
that's great. Yes. Let's hear it, Diana.
Yes, we have a big plan for volunteers. The first step to become a volunteer is to attend an orientation. And the orientation is a short 30 to 40 minute session where you get good understanding of what the role of a volunteer is, just so that you understand, what it would take, because it is a big undertaking, an 18-month commitment that we ask of these community volunteers. And then from then they can decide, well, yeah, I'm ready to make that commitment. And so they sign up for an interview and they turn in a volunteer application. And in the interview, we get to know the volunteer or this community, member who wants to step up and step in and make a difference. And we really get to know who they are, and just to make sure that we are a good fit in their life as much as they're a good fit for CASA. And we want to make sure we're protecting them as well, because, there's some, everyone's got a past and everyone's got different traumas. So we're looking out for the community members as well, because we don't want that for them to read a case and for that trauma to transfer over into either from their kid to them, or their trauma to their kid.
Right.
We're just
we want to break the cycle.
Exactly. We want to protect everyone involved. And so from that point, we decide if they go into training, and there is a background check, extensive background check as well during this whole process. And then they go into training, which is a little over 40 hours, 45 hours, and it's a hybrid. National CASA, they have CASA University, and so they provide those tools for us so that we can use those here for our local organization. And so the training is, like I said, hybrid. There's online courses, there's online work, but we do meet in person. During COVID time, it was all online via Zoom.
Yes.
But we did just graduate our first in-person since pre-COVID, which was really fun.
Okay.
And so we are back in person, or I should say hybrid, where some in-person sessions and some online homework. Mm-hmm. And so after they've completed that, then they graduate and take their oath in front of the judge, which is always an inspiring ceremony. We bring in some advocates that have been doing some great work, and some supporters from our community that continue to help us continue to do the work that we're doing. And it's just a super inspiring ceremony. And then they're off to utilize all those tools and be able to advocate for a child or for children. Sometimes it's multiple children. Mm-hmm. It just depends on the case.
Diana, how does CASA recruit? Are it just people that come out of the woodwork and knock on your door or hit your webpage and say, hey, I read all about you and I want to be a part of this. Can I join? What do I need to do? Or are you doing outreach, looking for people in the community wanting to make a difference?
Both.
I'm sure it is. There's just not enough of it.
Right.
How many volunteers do you currently have in Kern County CASA?
We have about 200 active, currently. Just over 200 active currently. That number keeps growing. We saw a very big boost of numbers actually during COVID, which was fantastic because we didn't know what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. But we saw people wanting to step in, and the flexibility of being able to do the training online was just fitting. And so, like I said, our numbers continue to rise. We have community members that continue to call and inquire. They hear, some of them have heard about us for a very long time, but they just couldn't make that commitment initially. And some people I want to know more.
Sure. A little question. I wouldn't call it a personal question, but COVID has changed a lot in everyone's eyes, and we've learned a lot. There's been some good things out of COVID, and of course, there's been a tremendous amount of flexibility and adoption and so on. And being in the health insurance sector, and I speak quite often about this, is the mental health of COVID, of being in a lockdown situation, possibly ma or pa losing their job. Abuse, addiction is an all-time high. Have you seen a uptick of children needing more care or needing more advocates because more kids are being taken from the parents through this pandemic?
We constantly have conversations with, like I said, the director of Child Protective Services and our judge, and they've attested to that, especially, and it got scary during that major lockdown because it actually, the number of calls declined of suspected child abuse because there was no eyes. Teachers are our number one reporters. Physicians, you weren't even able to see your physician at that time. So, but yeah, we definitely are seeing the numbers come in. We are seeing our wait list rise. And it's definitely on our agenda to try to recruit as many individuals from every demographic. We really want to gauge the interest of our African-American communities. We need more African-American volunteers. We need more male volunteers. So we've, again, with COVID, it's kind of like you're waiting for things to kind of open up and you try to make plans and you're kind of like in this limbo constantly. But what we have done, we've produced some really good videos. We've been producing commercials and just continuing to try to recruit that way if we can't see you face to face. And we have some great committees. So even if people listening may not want to be a volunteer, we have a lot of people that actually aren't currently serving a child, but they help us recruit volunteers. And so that's been really helpful to see as well. One thing I wanted to go back on when you talk about those individuals, just thinking of our audience, I do see a lot of individuals in the law field, the students of law, students of psychology. We see a lot of retired teachers in general. Again, you have to have a schedule willing,
Sure.
But the training is first, it's evidence-based curriculum. So it's high-end curriculum. And it does cover everything from child development to what abuse looks like in families, what neglect looks like in families. Some of us that haven't maybe experienced it personally don't really realize that certain kitchen utensils can be used to make drugs. Right. I mean, like, let's get
Sure.
real. Like,
Sure.
we'll go in and we'll say, we'll show them a bathtub.
This is what you look for.
Yeah, this is a meth lab.
Yes,
you
right.
know, I mean, and that training, it does something to the individual, right? It does something for us as we learn about the devastation that these children go through, because that's one thing about child welfare is that it's a protected bureaucratic organization.
Yes.
That for the sake of the children, it's all confidential, but the community at large doesn't realize, because they can't go on the news and say, yeah, we found this child brutally,
right,
locked in a closet for 4 weeks. The only organization outside of that system is CASA.
Wow.
We're the only ones. And we've been entrusted with that. So we work very well and diplomatically with our partners in the juvenile justice system, but there's so much potential to change a life in such a unique way. And it is a lot of work, but it is so impactful. And you can't go to any other organization in our community and do what you do at CASA. So we do get a lot of students, people maybe interested in foster care.
Yes.
Before I take that leap, you know what, let me look and see what the system looks like.
Right.
And this is really the only way to do it. There's no other way.
Waiting list. What's that look like in Kern County?
Yeah, you don't want to ask our program manager at this point because she pull her hair out.
So does a waiting list mean children that need an advocate?
Yeah.
And you're trying to appoint it. Now, can a volunteer be an advocate to multiple children?
We will allow it, but we try not to. It's really, what that one-on-one advocacy, or if there's a sibling set of maybe 2 or 3, you could probably manage that. But we understand that majority of our volunteers do work, So if there's more than 3 children on a case, we'll do like co-CASAs. So we have a lot of husband and wives. We have a lot of sisters, friends. They co-CASA together and share the burden.
Right.
Yeah. But our caseloads have gone up significantly. There's nearly 100 children. What we've seen too is that COVID, again, it increased our numbers, which was amazing because there was people at home that were willing to do the training. But we've also seen a really high number of people falling out saying, yeah, I committed, but I took a job out of state, or I committed and I got pregnant, or,
There's been, it's brought a lot of change, and like I said, flexibility, and we don't know what tomorrow brings. Every day you turn the news on or whatever, it's been a roller coaster ride.
Has.
No, I've seen many people change direction.
Total course of direction, right?
Exactly.
And so we have a lot of people falling off, is I guess what I'm saying. So it's just so important that we continue to have that influx of volunteers, because we do ask for 18 months, and we hope that's
a commitment.
That is a large commitment. I know it is. I'm a CASA
volunteer. It's hard to get someone to volunteer at the pancake breakfast. I'm talking, this is a commitment. Well, Amy and Diane, I'm going to tell you something. I have sponsored CASA in the past, a few of the fundraisers. I've had friends of the business community reach out to me when you have fundraisers, and I was delighted to do so. But I'll tell you one thing I did is anytime I see a nonprofit is I go to GuideStar and check them out. I've always been in the financial world. I've learned about nonprofits, and transparency means so much to me. Mm-hmm. And I know you're a gold status in GuideStar, in which is unbelievable. And so I encourage anyone to check out CASA of Kern County, because you definitely have to do it. Let's just talk a moment, and then we're going to talk about your fundraisers coming up, about your corporate sponsors. I mean, I flipped through your logos, and we all know these big names, and some of them are great families of the community. Some of them are big corporations. Let's talk about that, and how do they get involved? And I'm sure maybe that's Diana's deal, but how does the corporate outreach work as well? Because I want to hit all audiences here.
Well, I feel like I know it is Diana's, but I just talk a little bit about what I think the benefit is for our corporate sponsors. And one is they obviously are giving back to our community and to an organization that is utilizing the funds to help children in need. So you have your warm and fuzzies.
Yes.
But in a business side of things, there's also, that visibility with organizations like CASA that have credibility. Like I said, 26 years. We are the only organization in Kern County that has such ability to reach our judges, our juvenile court judges. But those that come alongside us are individuals in the community that are like-minded. And so to these organizations, I feel like they see the benefit of being recognized in front of those individuals. And there's, like I said to my staff, and I continue to say to my board, I just love showing up, being involved in a group with a group of people that care about children, and I even if we have personality difference, even if we have difference of opinion on our politics, at the end of the day, we all care deeply about children. And there's just something there, it's just something special. And so I would say that our corporate sponsors see that value. The economic impact that we have, our board of supervisors currently approved us to be part of the budget again this year. They see the value in every time that we help a child get out of foster care, we actually save ourselves tax money.
Yep.
Because that money gets put into those group homes, it gets put into the pockets of those that are caring for them. And so if we can find a permanent home, then we save everybody. And what we found is the amount of hours that our volunteers give on an annual basis are equivalent to the salary of 3 to 4 social workers.
Wow.
And they're doing this all for free.
Yeah.
So the economics of the model of the system that we have is brilliant. And these people love to do the work. I think that, just looking at it from that economic perspective, I do know that businesses look at that as well. And we actually got a phone call today from LGI Home Improvement. Big shout out to them. I have no idea who they are. They called me today and said, we're coming tomorrow with a check at 11 a.m. Be there, picture ready. It's like, awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
And that's,
you don't get enough of those.
You talked about Tammy Chapman from Tallahassee. My first day on the job was like the first week. I was resource development manager. She called me and she's like, I have a substantial amount of money that I need to give you. So I don't give it to the government.
Right. Absolutely.
And where do you want it? And I thought, hi, my name's Amy. Is this how this works? Because I've never been a nonprofit.
This is easy. Not quite.
Not quite. We've had a few of those over the years, but I always love that story. We reminisce about it all of the time. But yeah, so we don't get enough of those, but we do get a large support. I cannot express the gratitude I have for so many corporate organizations that give to CASA. We really do. And then on Diana's side, what I know she can speak to is the events. I mean, we have really good events.
Well, let's talk about that, because you girls got a little outfit going on here.
Yeah, we do.
We have
Wonder Woman,
and I think it's Batman over here. You went to lunch like that today? You're drawing attention to yourselves.
This is pretty mellow, actually. This is mellow. I've got a closet full.
Well, I've seen some of the pictures from the events, and so yes, it's mellow. But let's talk about that fundraiser. We're talking about the superhero run, right?
Yeah, that's coming up.
October 30th, I think?
Correct. It is going to be spooktacular.
Yes.
Because it's Halloween weekend, so we're kind of playing off of that. And it is in person at the park at Riverwalk. So we're excited for that, because last year it was all virtual. This year, even for people who don't want to come out in person for whatever reason, there is a virtual option. So there are pluses to all of this, is that we've integrated some of those ideas that we brought in for during COVID time initial COVID time, because I feel like we're still COVID time.
Yeah.
But we do have a virtual option as well. But in person, we're going to have 2K, 5K, 10K, run or walk. We're going to have a media race.
Are you girls running?
Yeah, we'll be running around with like
You're gonna be working running. Right?
working.
Yeah.
You'll be out there at 3 a.m. working.
That's exactly right.
I did run the 10K a few years back, and I don't know how I did a 10K.
Yeah.
Because I am not in shape anymore.
You still feel it, right? I relate. I relate.
Years
But there
later.
are runners in the world that just look for things to do and,
Yes.
fundraisers.
Yes.
So it's right down their alley.
Exactly.
We get a lot of sponsors for that event too. We just see a lot of people. It's fun. It's just a fun one.
Amy, I don't need to tell you this, or Diana. You're probably both natives, Kern County, and I am too. And this is the most giving community
It is.
you
100%.
will ever find that I know
100%.
of. And there are so many good causes, but children are very special to so many people, and not saying that yours is better than any other one. They're all awesome, but you guys are doing a great service. Now, I also know that you do a big fundraiser around the Kentucky Derby. It's what, Boot and Scootin' Derby?
Yep, it's the Boot Scootin' Derby. We've actually decided.
I have a hard
change
time
the name.
saying that.
We're changing the name for you.
Okay, good.
It's just going to be the Derby party.
The CASA Derby party.
The CASA Derby. What we did with that is we realized we've had that event for 8-9 years. It was actually Tammy,
Yes.
and Jennifer Gardner and some of the main people of sponsoring the event. We kind of came together and said, well, what is Kern County about? And we really, especially being out on that farm, being out in, the country, I guess you could say, we said, let's have a Western theme on this so that people that aren't really into wearing the big hats or 3-piece suits, they can come in their cowboy hats and their cowboy boots. And so that's how we labeled it with the boot scooting portion of it. We're not taking that away at all, but we're kind of revising the name so people, because like you said, it was like the boot scoot dirt, it's all these variations. We're like, let's just make it easy for people. But definitely Kentucky Derby themed. The property, Keith and Jennifer, are just their hospitality is 100%. So yes, we plan on having that. Diana and I are excited because we're sick of doing events virtually.
Although I will say we had huge support with our virtual Derby this past May, where we had parties of 8 at different people hosted in their homes.
Right.
And they did an amazing job. They sent pictures and they did an amazing job with their centerpieces and decorating and just making their guests feel welcomed and still feeling, that Derby feel that you have when you go in person. But just, a little different because, it's at different homes, but people really felt connected still. And I mean, it was all for the cause, for CASA's mission. And so I really felt like we had tremendous support, even
we really
virtual,
did. And because the expenses were so low, we really did well as far as what we were able to bring in. Actually, I think we raised more money last year than the year before in person because of the expenses.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it was amazing.
When is the Derby scheduled?
That's going to be on May 7th, the first Saturday in May 2022.
And for the public to learn about your fundraisers, is your webpage the best resource for them? Yeah. Also to get in touch with you to learn more about CASA, maybe become a volunteer.
Yes, our webpage we constantly update. We do a lot on Facebook and Instagram as well, but the website has an opportunity for you to make an appointment if you want to attend an orientation, if you want to buy tickets to an event. KernCasa.org is the website. But
great.
Yeah.
Well, ladies, this is the time where we have a little more fun because it's all been fun. I'm going to ask you some personal questions.
Okay. Diana first.
Whoa.
Diana, you're first.
Okay.
Amy said it.
She's the boss.
Diana, what is a quote that you live by?
Oh, so many quotes.
I totally got it. But I'm letting
She passed the buck to you, and now she has the answer.
That's why I said I can't stop talking once I get the mic.
You have one for me, you said, or one for you?
It's mine.
She's got the answer. Amy, go ahead.
Okay, I have this on my whiteboard up in my office, and it's the number one skill in life is to never quit.
Very true.
Yeah. Very basic. And sometimes at the end of the day, I just say, I'm not going to give up. It was hard, but I'm not going to give up.
We all have some tough days, and we just keep plugging along. And then there are days that you just smile and you go, this is why I do it.
Yeah, that's right.
And it all seems to turn around. Okay, Diana, since you passed on that last one, this one will be easy. If you found out the world was ending in a year, what would you do differently?
Oh.
Or how would you spend your time?
This girl is full of adventure. I want to hear what you have to say.
You know what's funny is I kind of told life, you know what, I'm going to do my thing during COVID and started living a little bit more even during that time. It kind of shifted my thinking and started, I just thought, well, why wait? You know what I mean? Why wait?
True. That's kind of why we asked that question. It's when people start realizing it. And Kyle, our other co-host, we had Andrew McCormick from Sun Solar on. He says, guys, I think I would be doing exactly the same thing. And that was a light. It's like, wow, good for you.
Yeah.
That's not the case for most of us. But.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing what I love. You know what I mean? Like I have my 2 boys that are involved in sports, and I love being there for them. I am a CASA. I've been a CASA for almost 10 years, coming in October. And these kids touch my life in so many ways. I'm trying to be a community mentor through other programs in our community. That's just what fills my cup, and just being there for my people, for my CASA team, for each other, just as a community. I think that's first and foremost next to family. If we can't be here for each other as a community, then we have to reevaluate, what are we doing here?
No, I absolutely agree with you. I can tell you firsthand that both of you didn't come in here today because it was your job. You guys came in here because you have passion in your heart for children and this nonprofit, and you want to make a difference. And with that being said, I have Amy Travis, the Executive Director of CASA of Kern County, and Diana Ramirez, Resource Development Manager. We appreciate your service, and thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for everything.
This show has been brought to you by the Law Office of Kyle Jones, Troy Burden with the Lynn Company, CPA John Duffield, Scott Hansen, real estate lender, broker, and investor, and Eckroth, LLC, a sales and marketing agency. You've been listening to the Our 2 Cents podcast. Check out the show notes for links and more information about the show. Also visit our website at our2centspodcast.com or check us on Instagram at Our 2 Cents Podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe.